How often do you ever think about going to Bangladesh for a holiday? Well, don't all rush at once. Even if the trip was gratis, unless you were Bangladeshi, instead you'd probably opt for Thailand or similar. Well, first it was China, the perceived big secret country. In just 20 years, you'd not recognize the place if you went there now. It's so modern. Same for most of the Gulf countries, really, Dubai included. For now, you'd be surprised if you popped into Dhaka or Cox's Bazar at how many Westerners as such are moseying about the place. Sadly, if you went to Bangladesh 20 years ago, there is so much of it still the same now. But that has started to change. And for sure, in just a few years from now, we're going to see some massive infrastructure changes and possibly more political stability. Our aim with the visit to Bangladesh was to actually witness this change, the building of super bridges, highways and factories, clocking up the exports, etc., indeed lifting Bangladesh out of its perceived poverty, with around 160 million souls to cater for in a relatively small country, although it seems many of those millions are working abroad. The trip didn't turn out that way, unfortunately, but it was in a very good way, and one fully understands the logic and indeed the pride when the Bangladesh government invites journalists to view tourist attractions with a view to promote the very same, i.e. the Sundarban as it's pronounced, although you might want to call it Sundarban as spelt. This is a very large mangrove area in the southern part of the country which goes out to the Bay of Bengal and the Indian Ocean. It's also where the extremely rare Bengal tiger can sometimes be seen, although you probably have more chance of seeing one from the moon than clock one while walking through those mangroves. The tiger is very shy indeed, and no wonder. It's been hunted to near extinction in both India and Bangladesh, so it's no surprise that the beast keeps its head well down. Nonetheless, fully protected now, and it's a fabulous tourist attraction. It's rough, it's coarse, and hardly a sophisticated tour. But stick it on your bucket list, because you'll find yourself among very friendly people and as raw as it gets. Actually, make it quick before it changes to a more commercial adventure. It surely will be, as Bangladesh develops at such a speed, and we'll see dozens of boats up and down those tributaries. It's a conundrum, and I think we'll stick to Bali or Thailand this year. I mentioned the safety of the Gulf earlier. Millions flock to it. Yet there's war, death and destruction on a massive scale just kilometers away. But you think at least twice about going to Bangladesh, for example. And it's universal. Unless you're Bangladeshi, of course. You just can't get around it. In part 2, we will visit the Sundarban. But first, we need to clarify a few misgivings that you might have about Bangladesh. It's impossible to have a clear understanding or modern view of Bangladesh unless one delves into its history, particularly from 1971. We'll get into that in a minute, because this subject cannot be avoided anywhere in Bangladesh. The now People's Republic of Bangladesh has had its fair share of adverse publicity over the last few years, and some of it very recent indeed. So the main question a visitor would ask, is it safe to go there? Is it safe to go to London, Nice or Spain? Bangladesh has indeed experienced terrorism, as gruesome as it gets, but no more than the countries mentioned. But still you ask, is it safe to go to Bangladesh?
100% safe. No one is going to mug you. I haven't heard any mugging case in Dhaka that happens to a foreigner for many months now. Bangladesh is still one of the safest places in this world, I would say. You go to all these very secured and safe countries. I don't think, you also personally want to walk dead at night or early in the morning, or when the power went off, or when you have these load sheddings. Look at these $25 billion market where they employ 5 million workers. 70% of them are women and young girls. And sometimes they work in the second shift at night and they come back home safe.
My first opening sentence is, Bangladesh is more safe than Europe and America regarding militancy. Here, 1 or 2 individual persons are hit. The militants are targeting a particular politician or a particular blogger or a particular writer, like that. And in every case, Bangladesh government has a zero tolerance situation, zero tolerance attitude. As far my data goes, almost all the incidents are cracked. We have identified the killers. Many are brought before the court, and on trial. At the moment, more than 70 persons are waiting to be executed who have death sentences. We will not say that we have wiped out all the terrorist network, but Bangladesh is successful in destroying the cross-border terrorism, India-Bangladesh. That we are successful. We have demolished many hideouts of the militants within the country. So the administration and the law enforcing agencies are capable. But you will appreciate our position that in the world, nobody can check an assassination. That covert, sudden attacks are still there. I am also threatened by the militants. So an attack on my car is possible. It's possible. A suicide bomber is possible. So when a blogger is hit, when a person is hit, is an incident which is very sad. But government is very serious. That is why they have been nabbed and taken into account. That is the position. So I think we'll also appreciate that we are cracking down on the killers and militants within the framework of democracy. So that is a limitation. The Indian friends coming from India, they will understand the limitations. Within a democratic network, I had to fight. So I just cannot shoot a person across the road. I had to nab them, pick them, arrest them, place it to the court, and in an open media. So you cannot just shoot a person like the Americans are shooting, American police are shooting in their own country.
Bangladesh has a tourist board and dozens of websites detailing what's what. Bureaucracy's a little crazy, but Bangladesh is pretty laid back in many respects. So if you're not a terrorist yourself or possess any covert ideas to impose your own agenda, and even then, Bangladesh is as safe in that sense as any other country in the world, except maybe the acquired safety of some of the Gulf countries, for example, which are idyllic in most cases, unless you arrive naked. Likewise, in Bangladesh, tourism is not topless beaches and girly bars.
There are other limitations, the elements or the facilities that you need to attract foreign tourists. We don't have that in Bangladesh. We probably cannot allow to have that in Bangladesh also. We don't have any nightlife. We can't allow the open consumption of liquor in this country. So, we don't mind because we also have a reasonably strong and growing domestic tourism as long as these places are busy. But we have taken policies and some measures to attract eco-based tourism more than anything else.
But that's not to say the future doesn't hold it. For Cox's Bazar,
we will introduce direct flight between Nepal and that part of Bangladesh. And that will be an unique one, because you rarely get that. You don't get a sandy sea beach next to one of the toughest, or that's the highest peak of the world, Everest. We'd love to turn Cox's Bazar a Sharm el-Sheikh. We have enough people who thinks it's an worthwhile investment. So if we cannot afford to do it ourselves, I'm sure we'll find a partner to do it.
Other than that, Bangladesh has a gold mine at its fingertips, but they also have a mountain of logistics to overcome. So you're a little more interested now, thinking, Bangladesh, that could be an adventure. And you'd be right, especially if you're a nature lover. First things first, though, nothing in Bangladesh is one colour. This means that uniformity and neatness doesn't really exist. Yet from the chaos and seeming piles of rubbish and filth during the day, it's all swept clean during the night to start all over again just before dawn. But as with natural phenomena, when it's all around you and you grow up in it, sometimes the value of it, or the result of, can escape many's concern. So let's get some of the geography out of the way first, because Bangladesh doesn't really get its fair share of positioning in the media, or Western schools for that matter. Although you might be shocked to learn that British Bengalis, as they're called, make up almost 1% of the British population. Successive governments deny such numbers on an immigration basis, but it's not difficult to track, is it? In tiny Bahrain alone, the ratio's much higher than that, with the majority working as labourers. And one must consider what is Bangladesh's biggest export. By the way, Bangladesh is bigger than England, but smaller than the United Kingdom, yet has more than 3 times the population. As Gandhi said, and I think everybody else, You can judge a people by the way it treats its animals. Well, Bangladesh might not be the greatest animal-loving nation, but in the country, animals seem to roam around unhindered. Even in cafes, you see them walking around among people, particularly dogs, a lot of goats as well. And as an extreme animal lover, this is so very heartening, when Muslim countries in general deservedly get such a bad rap when it comes to cruelty to animals. See the sheer excitement and happiness in that three-legged doggy. So help this man and his friends out. His contact is listed on the strap and his videos available on YouTube. Take care of and love animals always.
The surest sign of returning stability is the return of the refugees. The horrors these people have known give way now to dreams. Bangladesh echoes today with chatting and laughter and plans for the future.
Okay, here's the testy bit, the part where it gets interesting, if you like history, wars and conspiracy. Now, why mention it here? It's all part of the tourism trail. You'll be hammered with it. As mentioned earlier, one cannot go to Bangladesh without being literally browbeaten about their coming into being as an independent nation. World War I and II, or the Great Famine of 1943, during which 5 million Bangladeshis died, is of no significance by comparison. And we're not talking about the partition of India in 1947, when Bangladesh existed only as East Pakistan. Whose brainwave was that when the two countries are not only thousands of miles apart, but their culture and language are widely incompatible? The only common aspect, of course, is Islam, and a very different outlook on that even. No, we're talking of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, lovingly referred to as the father of the nation, a politician of the people, albeit he changed parties a few times and was held under arrest in West Pakistan, from where he actually declared East Pakistan to be called Bangladesh as an independent country, while West Pakistan attacked. As of this little documentary, the Awami League is in political power, with Sheikh Hasina at the helm. This is of great relevance, as you will hear. It's a little similar to the Gandhi family, or even the Bush family, with generations fulfilling a political role. So if one is to get a real idea of what is in the head of a Bangladeshi, listen up. With the rest of the world who catch snips of news and bits of history, you might be under the impression that it was during this devastating, hideously bloody 1971 war of independence from West Pakistan that Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, by now the first Prime Minister of Bangladesh, was brutally assassinated. Wrong. Bangladesh lost millions in this savage genocide. Those dead are remembered as martyrs. Sheikh Mujibur was still in West Pakistan until 1972. That's despite some time earlier, when the Pakistani army had already surrendered to the Bangladeshi and Indian army who came to help. With Sheikh Mujibur now in near landslide victory for the Awami League, the country began reconstruction. Just 4 years into independence, Sheikh Mujibur and his family were brutally assassinated in their own house. Sheikha Hasina, Sheikh Mujibur's daughter, and her sister being the only survivors, as they were out of the country at the time. Now you see. Well, beyond this little documentary, conspiracy rages as to who did it. Wayward army officers is the official story, and that's where it stands. But if you want a good read, or someone to make a riveting international blockbuster, all the material is there to imply several conspiracies. From the CIA, Henry Kissinger even, Pakistan, and other players who wanted in power or someone out of power for whatever reason. They all seem to know full well that the assassination was to happen. Some players warned Sheikh Mujibur several times of his impending doom. None of it heeded by the Sheikh, convinced that his people loved him. Quote, "These are my children, they will not harm me," referring to his nation. Still interested? Then you need to go to Bangladesh, where you will be bombarded with it. The pictures being shown are the actual house where the Sheikh and his family were shot.
Private house of our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. First, our father of the nation, his wife, his 3 sons, and newly married 2 in-laws also assassinated in this house, and his brother also assassinated in this house. And the killers killed them, they looted the house, and after that this house was lock and key for long time, for about 6 years. And that time our present Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, she was in outside the country. She was in Germany, and after that she took asylum in India. And from India in 1981, she came into Bangladesh. But that time the government, the Ziaur Rahman BNP government, Ziaur Rahman government, they didn't get permission her to enter the house. He just prayed for her parents outside the house in the road. And after that, when she got permission to enter the house, she got the house. The house was looted. It was full of feather, blood, and bullet marks, everything. And that time she thought that it is not possible for them to stay in this house. Because our father of the nation, she was the leader of the peoples. He was the founder of the nation, father of the nation of our country. And he loved the people, and people loved him very much. And from that time, it is open for the people every day. So many people, thousands of people every day come and visit and see how could we got our independence. And he is our father of the nation, and he is the founder of our nation, and he was the leader of Bengali.
It's an astonishing memorial and shouldn't be missed if you like history, other than your own. Moving on to other basic essentials for your potential first visit to Bangladesh, one thing you might not be prepared for is the heat. That can be deceptive. Sitting in that boat on a lovely day in the Sundarban, we all burnt up. Tourist blurb rarely ever gives the truth about the downsides of a country. Look on the web before you go, and you'll see temperatures averaging around 19 degrees in the Northern Hemisphere winter, when Bangladesh is dry, rising to 30 from April on. Even 40 degrees is not unusual, and then it's quite unbearable, simply because of the humidity, even when it rains. But there are some stunningly beautiful days, and get the suntan oil out. From June to October, it rains. Oh, it rains. And it's not like Bangladesh doesn't have enough water already. A 2-meter rainfall per year is nothing unusual, being the country is low-lying, or could be said to be the flatlands at the bottom of the Himalaya, or Himalayas as we call them. Then the absolutely vicious typhoons from August on, which more often than not destroys much of the hard work done throughout the rest of the year. But Bangladeshis never seem to complain about anything like that. They just get up and do it all over again. It's as amazing as it is heartbreaking. Sure, they complain about other things, but that's not part of the program. All things considered, Bangladesh is quite a liberal country in so many respects and claims to be secular, but one might not get that idea from the horror in news stories. As a foreign visitor, Bangladeshis will not rush to the immigration gate with flowers to welcome you, nor will they bother to even notice you, being one of the least racist or racially curious countries we've ever traveled to. If you know where you're going, just go about your business as you would anywhere, and you'll come across an incredibly diverse society. Don't worry too much about English. Someone nearby speaks it well, and some shockingly well, especially in government and public sectors, such as hotels, etc. Of course, one doesn't get that impression while trying to get from the airport to your hotel on what is actually a reasonable road infrastructure within the city, with more development in progress. In fact, Bangladesh towns and villages take the Emmy for organized chaos. The road protocol in Bangladesh is the biggest fun fair you'll ever visit. Dodgems, as we call them, is played around the clock and with intent. You've never seen anything like it, but the passiveness and forgiveness which comes over as tolerance seems to be built into most Bangladeshis, which therefore allows this. It's a very odd concept indeed, where you could be stuck in one place for an hour and a half with horns blaring, but there's absolutely no road rage that we saw. Maybe it's there, but we didn't see it. Personal cars are not yet an everyday menu item, whereas tuk-tuks, or whatever you want to call them, are. But as the country now starts to prosper, and it is, the number of cars is increasing at an alarming rate. In time, it might take you 2 days to get to your hotel from the airport. Meanwhile, on any one street, 1 million buses, if you can call them that, ply the roads about 1 millimeter apart. That's if you're lucky. And when they get the chance, will physically push one another out the way like a full contact sport, then hammer along at over 100 with double the number or more passengers it was ever designed for. There is not one single bus or van where one might recognize the make or model, since they've all been mutilated beyond recognition. Dents, cracks, missing windows, twisted chassis, and painted over by hand dozens of times. It's hypnotic watching it. Squeezed in between this chaos is another million or so 50cc motorcycles, which can frequently be seen with an entire family mounted, from a little baby of 1 or 2 years who peacefully sits on the handlebars as if born like that, to the dad, mum and 4 kids or more, all huddled up, no complaints. It's extremely odd to notice the placidness. Even with a police escort, nothing seems to make much difference, as nobody appears to take any notice. As a European or say American, seeing this mayhem is as frightening as it is funny and mesmerizing. As for the death toll, well, according to the 2017 government figures, that's going up, but so is the population. A couple of thousand deaths in 160 million odd, which is just about twice the number of road deaths in Britain, a country with state-of-the-art road infrastructure, but 1/3 of the population. So Bangladesh is mathematically 3 times safer. As stated, Bangladesh has what wealthy, developed countries would call endless, pretty straight roads, and you won't see a traffic light for 100 kilometers or more. For most, the roads are surfaced okay, getting worse the further you get from the cities. But remember, the water cometh, and very biggeth. Enough now about the immediate visual aspects. When Who Does What.tv were in town, it was the Bangladesh New Year. Explained in a second. You've never seen so many people peacefully roaming around in all colours to enjoy the day with lots of entertainment and a carnival laid on. Bangladesh television wouldn't leave us alone because we stood out. We were bland. The first day in Bangladesh, we met government officials at the Foreign Ministry with a question and answer session where other media representatives grilled ministers about current affairs. Remarkably, on meeting the Foreign Minister at first, His Excellency Abdul Hassan Mahmoud Ali, it's immediately apparent that there is nothing of the European and American style, ego-drenched and somewhat dishonest politician about him, and indeed, none of the ministers we met. There was no twisting of answers, nothing seemed to be concealed, and no stalling. It was given as was, and is. It's very much like two friends having a chat in all cases. That cannot be said of a single politician in Europe, or the UK for a start. So sitting down with Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, His Excellency MD Shahriar Alam, I had a little catch-up chat away from politics and just general Bangladeshi things.
Minister, it's New Year, so we wish you happy. Is that how you do it here? Wish you a happy New Year?
Yes, Shubho Noboborsho, that's a Bangla, the expression in Bengali. That effectively means Happy New Year. This is the Bangla calendar. So, you know, the Bangla language to be used to greet people, not English.
But there's a lot of celebrations in Bangladesh. The Bangladeshis have a lot of celebrations.
Yeah, it's a lot of red, yellow colors. Millions of people will be on the street early in the morning, 6 o'clock, and you're seeing it for yourself. So, you know, I don't need to tell much, you know. Get some video. Instead of shooting foreign minister, shoot the general people. You'll get the right image, right picture, right color.
You celebrate independence, you celebrate
many celebrations. Yeah, we do celebrate English New Year as well. Yeah. And also we have Ramadan, and at the end of the Ramadan we have Eid, as you have in Bahrain as well, for sure, and the second Eid as well. So a lot of celebration, and people do celebrate during the puja. The Hindu, you know, one would think that they only celebrate puja in West Bengal and part of other, you know, India, but we celebrate regardless of religion. People who greet each other during all the other religious festivals, you know, including the Christmas, the Buddhist different days. When you have full moon, they have different days in Buddhism. So it's a country where people love to celebrate for anything and everything.
Well, as a Bangladeshi, and I would say a well-travelled one, what are Bangladeshis like? Are they really, really friendly, or are they just quiet, or? I mean,
all right, okay. Bangladeshis are friendly for sure. They are curious, they are brave, they are resilient. You know, just three examples. 1952, 21st of February, people died for their own religion to establish their mother tongue Bangla to make it the state language, and 3 million people perished in the War of Liberation. You know, so and. Were we prepared? We hardly had any arms, so it was all domestically modified, improvised arms and ammunition. Obviously, yes, we have had serious help from our neighbors, but you know, that's the courage, that's the bravery that has taken them that far. And also, Just imagine the number of cyclones and flooding that you have heard from a distance, whether that's Bahrain or Europe or England or anywhere. And you hardly get any reports of people dying in natural calamities in Bangladesh. Not in last almost two decades now, or a decade and a half. People has learned to live with those challenges, whether that be man-made calamities or natural calamities. So resilience.
Well, I'm going to come on to investment now, and I'm going to say the same sort of thing. Your celebrations we've talked of, and your resilience, and you've talked of this independence and the struggle. But you've got to go forward now. Now you invite media here, you talk, but most of what I hear, or we hear outside, is about your independent struggle. There's another story going on here. You celebrate it, and you're adamant about it. You're passionate about it.
That's the word, passionate. That's why we end up talking too much about it.
You do talk a lot about it, but do you think it's time to not forget it, you'll never forget it, but to move on a little bit and change the subject?
We are moving on. We are marching forward. But probably when we first see someone, we talk about our struggle. And we do it from a belief that that's something very close to our heart and should be your heart as well. Because the struggle for any nation's independence is very similar stories. Struggle, people get killed, women gets violated and all that. You starve for years after independence because, there's no money in the bank account and all that. But that's not what we just do. We don't, talk about the memories and the struggles. We are very much involved what's happening now. For last 8 years under the Prime Ministership of Sheikh Hasina, we have made an average GDP growth rate of 6.5%. 8 years ago, our total electricity generation was only 4,000 megawatt. Today it stands at 11,000 megawatt. Just imagine, first 38 years of independence, we had only 4,000 megawatt capacity. We have added another almost 7,000 to 8,000 megawatt in a span of 5 years. How about that? It's a fantastic achievement. 100% of the kids are going to school. We have opened up a lot of community health clinics. The production has increased. Our exports has doubled. It stands at $34 billion in 2016. But only 6-7 years ago, we used to have about $15-16 billion industry. The remittance, a lot of Bangladeshi expats are the workers mostly living in Bahrain, and every households and every offices do employ at least one Bangladeshis, and they have a reasonably good reputation for giving them just enough reason to renew those contracts or taking more Bangladeshi people. We have $17 billion coming in every year as remittances, mostly from Middle East, and we have nearly 8 million Bangladeshi living abroad. Good, more than half of them are in different parts of Middle East and some Muslim countries and in Africa. And Bangladesh export basket, we have $1 billion from pharmaceuticals. Now pharmaceutical is a product that not all countries just buying from a country. It goes through rigorous compliance checks, quality checks, and recently 2 companies got FDA approval, and that means they will be able to export to Americas. They do export to Europe as well. We export shrimps, we export green raw vegetables. That just indicates the hygiene and care that goes behind these products before exports. So, we are adding more product into the basket. And in coming days, the investment climate that we have created, JETRO, the Japanese government's external trade wing, they have done a research among the Japanese investors overseas, and to everyone's surprise, that they have termed Bangladesh as the most favored destination for their investment abroad. Now, this is surprising for people who are not aware of Bangladesh's development, but with help like yours, and hopefully it will reach to the right audience and will attract investment from Bahrain. So, a lot of work going on. And I'll just give one example. $1 billion infrastructural project was unheard of in Bangladesh 5 years ago. Right at this moment, I don't know, we probably have at least 24 infrastructural development projects that's with a price tag of $1 billion. And you know what? The largest, longest bridge, multi-purpose bridge, the road and the rail bridge, it's called Padma Bridge, with a price tag of $2.5 billion. We're doing it with self-finance. How about that? The economy truly have grown, sitting on nearly a $30 billion reserve in the central bank. We now have enough reason to be proud of, and not be complacent at the same time, and use this foundation and take the country to the further forward and achieve a double-digit GDP growth in coming days.
Now, you've got an airport here, it's quite a big one. You've got airlines coming in from all over the place, haven't you? There's no or are they coming in?
No. Tourists, businesses. In Dhaka, 15 years ago, we used to have only 2 5-star hotels. Only 2 5-star hotels. With how many rooms? 2 5-star hotel will house 400 rooms or 300 rooms or maximum 500? Right at this moment, the under construction hotels, okay, before I say that, we have at least 8 or 9 5-star hotels in Dhaka as opposed to 2. And in the pipeline, they have 7,000 new rooms coming up and adding in next 2 to 3 years. So that's tourists, for businesses, for tourism, for infrastructural project, to win the next contract, to run the factory, to run the joint venture that they have, to help Bangladesh out on a government-to-government project under some of the agreements that we have signed. So they're all those people.
Well, you've got highways here, you've got overpasses, you've got underpasses, you've got everything here, but it's crowded, when are you going to do something about this?
No, we don't have enough, thanks that you have seen quite a few of the new flyovers and new tricks to ease the traffic, but nowhere near yet, I admit that. And that also gives an opportunity to invest further. People are prepared to pay and go from distance point A to point B paying a toll. But unfortunately, there is no toll road to take them fast. What you have is the same old road, nice surface though, but it's not just big enough to accommodate all the traffic. So what we have done, the government of Bangladesh has taken for ease of the Dhaka traffic, the 2 major initiatives is one that we ran late. It's very important that the projects that we undertake, we deliver them quick. A 22-kilometer elevated expressway to bypass or overpass the Dhaka traffic from north to south. That project running, unfortunately, 4 years late. But they have started recently. So let's say 4 years from today, that part of the traffic will ease up. And we have also undertaken, with the help of JICA, the Japanese government's initiative, 6 metro rails. And the first one, the work is going to commence this year. By next 3-4 months. We are calling it MRT6, then the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 will be built. An interesting thing is, this is for the first time, the price of the Dhaka, the land or property, is running flat for last 3-4 years. It's not because the world is going through a recession or the price of the property has fallen overseas, because Bangladesh has grown and still growing, as the salary and every income level has grown as well. The fact is that the Dhaka city has expanded, and that will ease up the traffic once the households are built in those areas. In the north of Dhaka and also in the east of Dhaka, the city has truly expanded.
So a metro is coming.
Yeah.
Now, you've got these, rickshaws, don't you? It's just all over the place. Yeah. So do you think, from your own personal opinion, once that metro or whatever the train is in or across the city, would all those disappear? Because that's all of a sudden, that's what you want, really.
We have this challenge, all the economic growth and the decision that you take, you need to make sure that the marginalized people are not out of it. The rickshaw pullers, they don't have the expertise, they don't have a license to run a motorized vehicle. That's what they do at a young age, pulling rickshaws. So whenever we built a new road, there were demand from a section of people that we should ban the rickshaws. And then at the same time, you have the other group of people who said, don't ban the rickshaws. Where are they going to go? So unless we create an alternative employment, we're not going to ban them. But the certain roads, yes, rickshaw gradually has been moved or pushed out from those roads, especially from the VIP roads. And obviously, the flyovers that we build, rickshaws are not there. So it will be a gradual and natural phase out in coming years.
How many years?
It's very difficult to predict. I'm not in charge of the Dhaka traffic, but we have seen gradually rickshaw being eliminated. And even in rickshaws, they have these very interesting Chinese motors that runs a little faster, but that also poses the risk of getting bumped into another rickshaws at a higher speed, injuring people.
So you got the bridge, you got this infrastructure coming, you got the trains. What the foreign minister told me a lot of things. He went on. There's so many. Personally, what in that area, because you're the man that's going to put this out to the world.
Yeah.
Have you got a favourite project?
In terms of infrastructural development, you mean? Well, one big thing is that's coming up is the nuclear power plant. And not every country is allowed to have nuclear power plant. Once you qualify certain things, only then the IEA, the International Atomic Energy Commission, IAE, allows you to establish a nuclear power plant. So we got that permission. The work has begun. So that's a testimony of Bangladesh's ability. And also we are going to make our presence felt louder in foreign lands by strengthening our foreign missions. And we don't want to see Bangladesh through the eyes and ears of those employer of migrant workers. We as Bangladeshi, we also employ people, and the product that we are exporting has a high regards and high acceptability, starting from the basic clothing to sophisticated fashion ranges, also from pharmaceuticals to ships that we are building and exporting to European countries, including Netherlands, Denmark, and also in New Zealand and Australia. So we want to portray a better Bangladesh through Ministry of Foreign Affairs as well. And there are new challenges, new dimension. It's not only the in the past, Bangladesh was heavily dependent on aid. So presumably my predecessors, they were engaged in making sure the aid arrives in Bangladesh on time. Now our focus has changed from aid to trade. So Ministry of Foreign Affairs' job is to create a favorable trade condition with particular countries and region, i.e. Getting into a bilateral agreement or a multilateral agreement, signing FTAs or preferential trade agreement, if not free trade agreement.
Well, ships is a big thing now. There's a lot of people don't realise that.
Yes. It's new, and the very interesting thing is, 70 years ago, 80 years ago, people of this land used to go to Singapore and some other countries to work in the shipping industry, in shipbuilding, and as well as to be a seafarer in those ships. And they are coming back after this industry revived in Bangladesh. So we always had that expertise.
So what should a potential investor that might see a bit of this, what should they do?
What they should do is they go to Board of Investment in the first place, and it's under Prime Minister's supervision, and there are one-stop service available, where, yes, truly they need to take a step into that building and office, and everything will be done from the single roof. To ease the trade, ease the environment, what we have done is we are allowing the private parties and foreign parties, including local ones, jointly or singly, to set up special economic zone. And special economic zones comes with a lot of added advantage and benefits in terms of duty-free status, in terms of duty-free import, repatriation of your investment, employing foreigners with easy terms and conditions. So, if they want to invest, they should come to a Board of Investment. And if they have any difficulties, we are there at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to help them out.
Finally, you've just visited Bahrain, for example. Has it been fruitful? Has anything developed?
My minister, senior minister, visited Bahrain, and we talked about increasing trade. We had Foreign Office dialogue. We have a large Bangladeshi diaspora, and also we said that we found out that there are appetite in Bahraini businesses to come out in places like Bangladesh to invest. And there are quite a few companies who have shown interest. And with resumption of the Gulf Air flight, I think things will ease up because we had a very strong tie that got a bit loosened over the years because of not having a direct linkages. So we're looking forward to Gulf Air heavily.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much as well.
Thank you.
That's the end of part 1. In part 2, we go down south to the Sundarban, where the tigers are, although we didn't see any. But the scenery is stunning. Look out for that. This is Geg Hopkins for the Who Does What.tv team visiting Bangladesh.